modulate this webinar to your liking to make sure that you get the most out of it. I do recommend that people participate in this webinar. In about 20-30 minutes, I'm going to start my video. That way the webinar room would have settled in. Okay. Before I start, I want to ask this one question here, and I'm going to put in a chat part. So so we have this. What is it that what is the one problem that you are here to solve? You can type your answer in the chat pod. If you did not get this, what is the one problem that you're trying to solve? Jagan says the scores are not improving. And Jagan, if you can add some context to it, where is it that you are? What do you think is your biggest problem? That'd be helpful. It'll be extremely helpful for me as well as for others as well. Adding context always helps. Okay, the same thing over there with other folks. When you say time management, not able to complete the assigned goal, you're a bit more elaborate as to which. I mean, what's your current score level? Because the solution to to someone who's at a let's say a Q78 and is unable to finish the test is very different than for someone who's at a Q84 and is unable to finish the test. Okay, Saksham says, I'm not able to track my progress. I'm managing time for reasoning questions. I seem to be stumped in deciphering the options. Again, because put in your current ability as a context. These are good problems, but the solution to this problem would depend on where you currently are. But again, good problems. I'm seeing a good variety. I'm seeing stuff which is very specific. There's a lot of timing that's coming in here. Not able to track my progress, hence I'm not able to gain confidence to go out and give mocks. Stuck at about 80 for all sections. Time management in verbal. Okay. Twelve answers, 12 questions. Where I want to study from, I'm considering self-paced study. Okay, that's good. I'm going to ask a couple of other questions here. I just hide this. And I'm going to move this on the left-hand side. So I have a bit more room to add polls here. Simple yes, no. Simple question here. Are you an e-GMAT student? If you're a paid student, the answer to this would be yes. If you're not a paid student, if you're someone who's just exploring the free trial, the answer to that would be no. And then the other question that I have is essentially, how many of you have created a study plan on for yourself? The second yes no question is for your study plan. So I have about 33% of you who are e-GMAT paid students, about 64% who are not. I have about 44 students here. I'd like to see a few more responses. And then on the left-hand side, we have what problems are we trying to solve. We're going to talk about that as well. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let me hide this. And then let me hide this as well with regards to study plan. Only 27% of you seem to have a study plan, and we're going to solve that problem today. So lots and lots of issues. People seem to be facing problems with timing. That's what they think is limiting their progress. We're going to really talk about that as well. I'm going to put in another poll question here before we get started, which is what is your target GMAT score or GMAT focus score? Okay. So here are the poll options in this case. So while you're answering this, I also want to draw your attention to a couple of webinars that we have. We have a free webinar on arithmetic. This is a comprehensive webinar where we in which we cover majority of the difficult or the challenging aspects of arithmetic. We're going to talk about number properties, PNC probability, as well as we're going to have some word problems here. It's a very lucid webinar where we start from the easier side of questions, but very soon, once we ensure that you know the concepts, we ramp up to hard problems, and we show you how simple it is to solve those hard problems if you think about them the right way. That's exactly 24 hours from now. And then next week, people are facing problems with verbal. We have an RC and multi-source reasoning webinar. That is something that you can click on by register now button. In terms of the target scores that folks are aiming for, about half of you are aiming for that 715 to 735. Another 40% are aiming for a perfect 100 percentile score. And then there are very few who are aiming for a score below, a score up to 705 or even below that. Okay. And then when do people plan to take their test? The biggest, so we about 67% of you more than 45 days before their test. Another 33% of you have fewer than 45 days, and there's actually no one who has their test in the next 15 days. Okay, let me hide this, and let me hide this as well. So with that, let me go right into the presentation pane. I'm going to put in a Q&A part over here. Just in terms of the logistics of the webinar, I'll be talking to a presentation, and then below the presentation is a Q&A or a question and answer pod. And then to the right-hand side of the presentation, we have this area where I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to you to make sure this webinar is interactive. And this is what you'd be responding to those questions here. So in short, if you have a question, put it below the presentation in the Q&A or the question and answer part. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see Q&A, which stands for question and answer. When you ask a question, it goes into a queue, and then I can respond to it. I keep track of those over here. On the right-hand side is the place where I ask questions, and you answer those questions. And if you post your question here, and I feel it's not the right time, I usually clear the right-hand side, so your question may get lost. So refrain from putting your questions there. Okay, before I go into the webinar, we're going to talk about how to build that study plan, how do you define metrics for it, and how do you track those metrics, and how do you iterate on it. Before I talk about that, I want to take about 5 to 7 minutes talking about a brand new product that we introduced, which is live sessions for the Focus Edition. For those of you who don't know us, e-GMAT's a company that pioneered self-paced learning. Over the last 10 years, we've invested about $5 million of our own money in tech, another $4 to $5 million in content, and we've delivered incredible success with that. Now, off late, a lot of people have been asking us to really say, hey, can we get more interaction with experts? Can we really, and especially those people who are looking for high scores, 99 percentile or better, they want to work with experts on the most challenging problems. They want to iterate faster. They want to get to their scores faster, which is where we augmented, we added live sessions for the Focus Edition as an add-on for our students. So if you have the base course, you can actually upgrade to live sessions, or you can buy the base course with the live sessions. The details on our pricing page. But essentially, this is very different from a regular classroom program where in a regular classroom program, you join a batch and that's it. Once the batch is done, you're done with this. This is a program where we offer you 15 high-value sessions with that focus on pure play application, on hard questions, building that error log, and diagnosing why you faltered over there. In addition to that, you have workshops again to diagnose why you're not performing to the level that you're supposed to if your metrics are at a certain level. These sessions are designed to repeat every 2 weeks. So essentially, if it so happens that life happens for you, and it happens for most people, actually get 2 to 3 interruptions within their preparation. Anyone has interrupted their studies, has been studying for the last couple of months and has had at least a week to a week and a half of interruption because of work or personal reasons over here? Has anyone done that? Okay, again, right-hand side, this is my question. Ankit, so on the right-hand side, you can respond, yes. So with this, because the sessions repeat every 2 weeks, if you miss a session, you don't have to wait very long to attend it again. It's very affordable. You only use it if you need it. If you don't need it, you don't use it. So that's why the pricing is monthly. And the teachers who are here, they're the ones who created the content. So they are GFE folks, not traditional GCE folks who have no idea about how the GFE works. Okay. Again, three kinds of sessions, live sessions, workshops, and coffee sessions. And if you're an e-GMAT or you've actually attended coffee sessions before, so it's not just teaching you basics, but it's applying on the hardest problems and iterating. That's the focus here, so that you can track your improvement. Here's an example of the kind of sessions that are here. So the first session is usually the onboarding session, and then you can see we start with focus on CR with advanced visualization, pre-thinking, and cementing readiness. Cementing is our pre-ability measurement stage. After you're done with the content, you can see W1 says week 1, W2 says week 2. All TR sessions take place on Thursdays. Then you have RC sessions, again, advanced reading strategies and cementing readiness. So again, when you go into any assessment, you're ready for it over there. You have strategy sessions around test readiness and workshops here. And then we go into, the same thing with Quant, the same thing with DI, and focus sessions on verbal and Quant and DI, workshops there in this case as well. And this is essentially an initial blueprint of sessions. As we move forward, and we just in week 1 of this, as we move forward, we're going to add more and more sessions for this. So when you think about the traditional live sessions, how they work, so essentially one of the biggest things that's there is integration. They're completely integrated with your study plans. We'll talk about how we build personalized study plans for you. When you think about a traditional live classroom, that live classroom drives your study plan. Here, these sessions are very, very tightly integrated with your study plan. So you don't change your study plan just because you've joined a live session classroom here. The other thing is, when life happens, you can take a break, come back, you'll still have a live class to attend to because they repeat every 2 weeks. Super affordable. This is not as much a means to earn money as it is to make sure that that we help you score higher. We make most of our money on our self-paced classroom course, which is why it's $49 a month, whereas most of the others run in thousands. And honestly, if you don't like them, you just let us know, after attending a couple of sessions, and we'll refund your money. And they're not delivered using Zoom because it's not designed for this. We use Adobe Connect, which is, as a platform, it costs about 4 times as much as Zoom does, and it provides, and for good reason, because it provides you that flexibility that Zoom doesn't with regards to polling and content sharing, or so, and quizzing as well. And for those of you, in terms of the experts, it's Pyle or myself or someone who's actually scored upwards of a 700 on the Focus Edition here. All sessions take place on weekdays, 8 p.m. IST, which is 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So if you are in Europe or the US or India, it should be at a fairly a good time for you guys, or time when you can really do this. Again, talk about the pricing here. Okay. With that, let's talk about, hopefully that gives you an overview. Check the agenda out, check the sessions out. When you look at, when you go to our website, there's a link for live sessions. You can check more details out there. Okay, with that, let's go into the crux of the session, and the session is kind of divided into 3 parts. We're going to talk about how does scoring work on the Focus Edition. Okay, how many of you think you're intimately familiar with scoring on the Focus Edition? Just some data point. And then once we understand how does scoring work, we're going to leverage those insights, and then we're going to build a personalized study plan for you. I'm going to give you a framework on how each one of you can build that personalized study plan. Okay. When you think about the scoring aspect, a lot of people really worry about initial few questions, timing, finishing the exam, and those things. Having a knowledge of that is good for you. What we're going to focus on is aspects of the Focus Edition that help you build a plan and help you get to that score. And you're going to really see truly the fundamentals, how we apply those fundamentals into building that plan here. Then we're going to really talk about, how do we execute that plan here, and then we're going to solve a few questions towards the end to focus on the core skills that you should build, honestly, when you think about this. A lot of people, when they think about the Focus Edition, they think about what I call as covering the syllabus. I'm sure some of you do that over here. How many of you have done this to really say, hey, let me focus on going through the concepts quickly, and then I'm going to solve questions and build that ability up there. And as I solve more questions, I'm going to improve. So the focus is to get through the concepts quickly and then focus a ton of time on solving questions. Again, be honest. This is a forum where no one's looking, seeing your name, which is why I do not have the chat pod, but I have the short answer pod here. Um, okay, that doesn't help you get to that 99 percentile. So we're going to really look at why skill building is way more important than worrying about timing, and how if you worry about skill building, timing uh, uh, actually takes care of it itself. I want to ask this one other question. Okay, how many of you think that that if the timing is the primary reason that is stopping you from getting a 99 percentile score on the Focus Edition? I'm going to I can put in a poll question. Let's just do a yes no question here. That way you don't have to type it out. How many of you think that timing is the only reason or the primary reason that's stopping you from getting a 99 percentile score? In other words, what you're really saying is, if I got 5 more minutes in every section, I'd be able to get to a 99 percentile score today or in a week. If I gave you 5 more minutes in every section, or let's say even 8 more minutes in every section, so instead of 45, you got 52, 53 minutes in every Sorry about that. The timing of that could not have been any worse. Um, so I'm one of the problems with being in India is you have power cuts, then I have to figure that out how to fix this. So coming to this, how many of you think timing is the primary reason where if I gave you 8 more minutes, you'd actually get to that 99 percentile score? Okay, I have about 31% of you really who see that. Timing as well as concepts. Just timing, no. Okay. So with that, I'm going to give you some poll questions. We're going to start with that foundation on the Focus Edition, and we're going to start with this one very fundamental question. If you want to get to a 90th percentile in any section, what is the accuracy on medium questions that you need to achieve on that particular section if you want to achieve a 90th percentile on any section? Remove broadcast results. So I only have 17 out of 48 responses. I want to get to at least 25, if not 30 responses. Very simple question. If you want to achieve 90th percentile ability in any section, so that 90th percentile is 85 on quant, 84 in verbal, and about an 81 in DI out of 90. What ability do you think you need in medium difficulty questions in that particular section? Let me end the poll, broadcast the results. We're close to 30, that's good. And you can really see majority things that's about 90% or higher. Okay. Now let's look at another one. If you want to achieve 90th percentile in that section, in any section, what accuracy should you have on hard questions in that particular section? Want to achieve 90th percentile in any section, what accuracy do you think you need on hard questions? I have close to 30 responses again. Thank you very much. Let me broadcast results, and you can see the most popular is 85%. And then the second most popular is 80, third most popular is 75. We have 60 and 90% as the last couple of choices. Now, again, we're going to start with 75th percentile. If you want to achieve 75th percentile, what accuracy do you think you need to have in medium questions? '75th percentile, that is. Okay, I have almost 30 responses. Actually, more than 30 responses. Let me end the poll, broadcast results. Again, the majority is at that 70%. Let's see if that's correct. And then I'm going to get to the next question. You want to achieve 75th percentile, what accuracy should you have in hard questions? Okay, let's get to this. 75th percentile is what your goal is. What accuracy should you have in hard questions? 5, 4. Actually, we have the answers. I don't even need to do the countdown. Thank you. You guys are phenomenal. So you can see the most popular is 50%. 55% also gets a lot of love. And after that, 70% is also there. So let me just show you the answers here. If you want to achieve 90th percentile, then your accuracy in medium questions needs to be around that 90%, or which means that you've got to pretty much answer every question correct. And in hard questions, it's going to be about between 70 and 75%. If you're talking about DI, you can probably get away with 65% as well. Why? Because the difficulty level, the definition of a hard question, the accuracy of a hard question in DI is usually slightly lower than that in quant and verbal. But again, if you're at a 70% accuracy in hard, you are close to that. 75th percentile medium, you still need close to that 90%. But then on hard, that's where 50 you can get away with 55%. So the takeaway is when you're looking at higher abilities and higher 75th and 90th are both higher abilities, then then it's the hard questions that matter. Yeah, so this and this are the differentiating factor. Honestly, if you're comparing your accuracy on medium questions, it's going to be absolutely impossible to differentiate whether you're a 90th percentile student or or uh, or a 75th, or in fact even a 60th percentile student. Medium questions start to become important below 60th percentile. That's when they're a reliable indicator of your ability. That's when hard questions are no longer as reliable an indicator. Now, why should this matter to you? Why is this knowledge important? Why is this knowledge important to you? And you answer 4 questions and you must be thinking, okay, what do I do with this? How do I apply this? How do I make my preparation better with this? There's nothing to, I didn't use the word timing at all in this. So to set goals, okay, interesting. That's good. That definitely helps there. Yes, absolutely. Can help us assess how we're doing on mock tests. It can't, because most mocks, official mocks, don't tell you the difficulty level overall. Someone who said to set the goals, can you explain that? Elaborate on that. That's a very interesting point. Strategize and prepare, elaborate on that. These are at a very high level the right answers, but I want to make sure that you elaborate on that. So there are a few things that come with this. First of all, if you don't achieve these high accuracies in medium questions, solving hard questions is essentially useless, because you won't achieve high accuracies there. You would just end up wasting that. So in terms of the stages or aspects of learning, first get a reliably high accuracy in medium questions, only then move to hard questions. The second thing, even when you get to hard questions, you're not going to be able to achieve 100% accuracy. That's not going to happen. Okay. The third thing where it helps you is that, and I'm going to write this out in notes here. Let's just write these things out. PG matters. What are your cementing accuracies? What is the medium cementing accuracy that you need as a threshold that you have in the cementing quiz? Minimum is 70, and an 80 or 85 or 90 is really, really good. I want to say ability, or I would actually just talk about this as potential. Okay. Corollary to that second point is, if you get a certain score, we can evaluate, did you perform as per your ability, did you perform beyond your ability, or did you is that a subpar performance? Here we can absolutely do that. The third thing, which I think a lot of things that something that you worry about, This is something that you know. Okay. And when you know all of this, you focus your energy on the right things. Explain point two, not getting it. Let's explain point two over here. I'm going to elaborate on this here. Let's say in CR, your hard accuracy is 75%. Your medium accuracy is 90%. What is your predictability? What's the predictability? Predictability, if we have this. Your predictability in CR is between 90 to 95. Right? Between 90 and 95. If the same thing is there in RC, okay, that you know in RC as well, and you have your predicted RC abilities between 90 and 95, which means your predicted verbal score, what you have a potential for, is between 84 and 86. Okay, or 84 and 87. I would say 85 and 87 more so. Even before you take the test. So if you take the test, you actually get an 82 rather than patting yourself on the back. You should really say, hey, this is lower than what I should be getting given my stats. Does that make sense? Okay. Even before you take the test. And the nice thing about this is, once you've learned CR, this is the prediction you can make, even without taking a mock test. Why? Because if you've not done RC and you take a mock test, that RC score is going to drag your score down. Okay. Now, if you get a 90th percentile in each of the three sections, what score do you think you can get? I have three options there: 645, 675, 705, and you have the corresponding percentiles there. What scores? The correct answer is 675. Okay. Ruhr, someone said Ruhr. Ruhr is an area in Germany. Did you want to say true? All right. With that, let's kind of a bit more quizzing here. What's the relative weights that the Focus Edition assigns to each of these three sections that we have: quant, verbal, data, insights? I'm going to reopen the poll, and this is something that you guys should know. In other words, which section is most important? If you think quant's most important, choose quant. If you think verbal is most important or has the highest weight, then you choose verbal. If you think DI has the highest weight, choose DI. I'm looking for 30 responses. I have 31, 32. Let me end the poll, broadcast results. At 61% of you got it absolutely right. All sections are equally weighted. When you think about the score out of 90, every section contributes the equal number of points. So, as you change your score from 87 to 88, it has the same impact of improving your score. And let's say if you improve your quant from 85 to 88, it's a plus 3 point improvement. That has the same impact that improving your verbal score from 82 to 85 has, or improving your DI score from 79 to 82 has. As long as it's a 3-point improvement, it is actually it has the same impact. And that's a beautiful thing about the Focus Edition, which wasn't true about the classical edition here. Now, If you want to get so each section has um, uh, where is my poll? Okay, I'm going to use this here. If you want to get a score of 645, what should be your quant plus verbal plus DI score? To get a 645 on the Focus Edition, what should be your quant plus verbal plus DI? Just roundabout. And this is really critical because if you're aiming for a certain score, you should know what's the end thing that you need to achieve to get there. And then you should know how to get there. Those are two absolutely essential things. Remember, each section is out of 90, which means the max you can get is 270. The lowest you can get is 180 because the lowest score in each section is 60. 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll. Broadcast results. You can see choice C is the most popular. The correct answer is actually choice B, which is 246. Your sum of scores is 246. You get to a 645, which is a 90th percentile. Or on the old GMAT, it's the 700 equivalent. In that case, so if you get an 82, 82, 82, you get a 645. If you get an 85, 80, 80, 85, 81, 80, you get a 645. Any other combination, you get a 645. Okay. Now, if you want to get a 695, okay, then what do you need? In this case, let me bring in another poll question here, and we broadcast remove the prior answers, remove broadcast results. 695, what do you need? 645 was 246. 695, which is a 98th percentile, 750 equivalent download from the classical GMAT. I have 9 responses. I now have 14. I have 19 responses so far, 23 responses so far, 24, 25. Okay, a few more would be nice. $26. And the poll broadcast results. You can see choice D is really popular. Choice C is really popular. Again, the correct answer is choice B. 253 will get you a 695 on the Focus Edition. So the good news is you guys want to be able to score higher, and you think you need to achieve more, and you think you guys can achieve more. So whatever score you're aiming for, I think you can get a higher score than that. Right? Right or not? No one's typing. You have the short answer poll all to yourself. Okay, so with that, we now have some background on the Focus Edition. Let's kind of build your study plan. Each one of you should have your own personalized study plan, your own trackable calendar for this. So certain things that most of you know, we have 3 sections: quant, verbal, and DI. This is diagram from essentially from the GMAC. There's a unified scoring architecture. We talked about this. Each section has identical weights, which is very different from the classical edition, where you had 3 different scores. You'd get a score out of 800, you'd get a score out of a writing score, and you'd get an integrated reasoning score. The writing score or AWS score was out of 6. IR was out of 8. Now you just get 1 score, which means life's a lot easier for B schools, because they really no longer need to worry about processing 3 different scores. Okay, the job that the GMAT has, it has just one very simple job. When you think about the scoring scale on the GMAT, you have 61 ability levels. The lowest score on the Focus Edition is 205. The highest score is 805. So when you do the delta, it's highest minus lowest, and the granularity is 10 points, you get to 61 ability levels. And how the GMAT works is it really says, okay, we have these 61 ability levels. These ability levels are absolute. They do not change overall. And then every year or so, the GMAT really says, okay, how many percent or what percentage of people achieve a certain ability level. Okay, and then accordingly they assign percentile. So as per their estimates, uh, only 10% of people achieve an ability level that is 645 or higher, which is why 645 is approximately a 90th percentile. 735 starts to get to 100 percentile, so only 99.5% of people achieve an ability level which is less than that 735 ability level. So all of your GMAT scores are essentially a reflection of your ability. The percentiles are they change year on year depending on how the test taking population is doing. Okay, 10 years from now, if we are still worrying about the focus edition, the 735 as an ability level would still remain the same. Today it corresponds to 100 percentile. 10 years from now it might correspond to 98th percentile, but that absolute ability level would still remain the same. In other words, if you have a 735, hypothetically what it means is you can process a complex piece of text with a ton of data and come up with 80% with excellent inferences for 80% of questions. That fact is true today. That fact would remain true 10 years from now. Now, today you are among the 0.5% of students who can do that. 10 years from now, you may be amongst the 2% of students who do that. Zanath has a question. Zanath, you can ask your question, but does that make sense? The absolute aspect of the ability levels versus the relative aspect of the percentiles. Okay. Now, a lot of people worry about that these percentiles will change. It's a new score. These percentiles will change. How many of you are worried about that or have heard about that? Then you can type your question here in the Q&A pod or the short answer pod. But while Zanath is typing her question, um, I want to ask you guys, how many of you worry about percentiles changing, saying, hey, I don't know if I should aim for a 705 or a 735? Yes, there are experimental questions that do not contribute to the score. That's the only reason why you can take the test every 15 days. Okay. So there are, I think, between 2 and 3 experimental questions, I would say, in each section. And sometimes luck plays a really big role through these experimental questions. For example, we've had a couple of students who've gotten 100 percentile score on the focus edition, have got 100 percentile sectional scores despite making 1 or in fact even 2 mistakes. And the only way you can get that is if those questions were experimental questions. Okay. Now, we'll talk about accuracy. How reliable is accuracy a measure on the focus edition here? And this is a question that many of you ask. And you may ask this for quant or verbal or DI, but how many of you ask this question? How many questions must I answer correctly to get to a 98th percentile on verbal? Or DI or quant? How many of you ask this question? You do. I try and estimate. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you screenshots of people. I want you to tell me, and these the number of mistakes is there, where they made the mistakes. That fact is there as well. I want you to tell me what percentile score or what score out of 90 do they have. Okay. Here is the first screenshot. Okay, this guy has made 5 mistakes. You can see where the mistakes are. What do you think this person has scored out of 80, out of 90? And what does that score translate to? Number of mistakes is 5. I'm going to type that out so each one of you knows that. This is real GMAT, not the mocks, but actual real GMAT attempt. If 5 mistakes, I've seen people saying 80, 82, 82, 85. Okay, 78. Remember, verbal section has 23 questions. All right, the score here is 86, which corresponds to a 98th percentile. Okay, 98th percentile. Let me see if I can type percentile. All right. How many of you are surprised? So many mistakes, yet 98th percentile. Okay. Again, it all depends on your medium and hard accuracies. Okay. Another score report. Five mistakes plus one unattempted question over here at the bottom, the last one in this case. So I would say in terms of mistakes, it's 5 plus 1. Okay. So what do you think? See, 78, 80, 85, 84 out of 90. All right. This guy got a V75, which is 19th percentile, 19. Okay. Because there are a couple of points deducted for an unattempted question, but that is not the reason why this guy got a 19th percentile. I mean, he may have gotten a 78, which is about a 30th or 31st percentile had he marked that question. But again, what do you think is going on over here? Why is it that, this guy got such a low score? What do you think happened on the test? Yes, he didn't even get hard questions. The test primarily served him easy questions and not a whole lot of hard questions. And on easy questions, you make mistakes, you're going to get penalized a lot more, which is where I was saying, if you understand the relationship between those accuracies and abilities, you achieve those metrics, you're not going to worry about initial questions or questions towards the end. And the next one will be another testament to this. Let's look at this over here. Again, you have 8 mistakes here. Okay, including the initial 2. What do you think this guy got? I'm going to clear 8 mistakes. 67, 80, 70, 65, 0 to 7. There's no 0. The minimum is 60. Score out of 90. And we can talk about percentiles. That's why you have a 0. So this guy had made 8 mistakes, including the first 2. And he got a score of 81, which is a 70th percentile. Okay. What do you think happened how difficult do you think were those initial questions that he got wrong? These ones over here. How difficult do you think these 2 questions were? They were medium or medium hard. They weren't easy. Okay. Possibility could be experimental. We don't know that. Yes. But again, they weren't easy. They could be medium hard, in my opinion. Okay. So again, if you have those metrics, then it translates to results. You can make mistakes on the test. The test doesn't penalize you for that as long as you make mistakes on challenging questions. There's another one of our other students who basically made mistakes. You can see this is a question where he's made a mistake. He's made a mistake here, made a mistake here. So I think these are the only 4 mistakes that this guy has made. Okay, 4 mistakes. What score do you think he has? I have an 86, 85, 90, 80. Near 80. Okay, so this guy made 4 mistakes and he got an 87, which is a 99th percentile. Okay, 99th. This guy, when he got that 87, was his second attempt. In his first attempt, he made 6 mistakes. He got a 79, which is 51st percentile. You can see his ability scores there. And the second one, uh, he actually got an 87th, which is a 99th percentile. Overall, when you look at these scores, and I can trend about 20 more to this, but in terms of accuracy versus ability, if you were to really do a coefficient of correlation, even after I add more data, it'll come down to about 0.55, 0.56, or at the most 0.6. The accuracy and ability, while there's a positive correlation, it's not a super high correlation that we're talking about here. So when you ask that question, how many questions should I get right if you want to get to a certain score on the verbal section? Not the best question. Now, someone really had a really good point. Says, I got an 81. I made just 2 mistakes, the first and the 20th. Yes, that unfortunately can happen. And that first mistake probably was on a very, very easy question, which means the test took its own sweet time to adapt in this case. And so that is an unfortunate thing that happened with you. If you attempted the test again, you'd probably get 84 on Quant. Yeah, and that's one of the slight glitches that I feel that the question picker still has on the test. So that is a corresponding question. That's a great question. He says, since it's an adaptive test, if he solved medium questions incorrectly, would he only get easy questions afterwards? No, Siddharth. So the test might reduce the difficulty level, but then if he gets easy questions correct, then the difficulty level will go up again. So it's not that the difficulty level, once you solve a couple of medium questions wrong, then you can never get medium or even hard questions. You can. It's just that you have to force the test to really do that. But the bottom line is, if you focus on hitting the metrics, you're likely going to get a really good score on the GMAT if you have those medium and hard accuracies in place. Okay. Timing. Everyone's worried about timing. Let's talk about that. How important is it to get the first question right? How many of you here follow either cricket or soccer? Cricket or soccer? Which one? You can say C or S. Both. All right. So I'm going to give an example. Do you think Virat Kohli worries about preventing getting out on a full toss, or Messi worries about his ability to actually hit the ball in an empty goal? No, the answer to both is no. In the same way, if you're worrying about a 90th to a 95th percentile score, you know that if you hit your metrics, you shouldn't worry about the first question, because honestly, your ability would be way higher. Your likelihood of answering that first question wrong, if you truly have a medium accuracy of 90% and a hard accuracy of 75, 80%, is going to be extremely low. Okay. And because honestly, if you're aiming for that 735, you are trying to, in the context of the GMAT, be in the same league as essentially someone who plays the IPL in India, or someone or someone who plays in the Bundesliga. If you correct if you correct your questions towards the end, the test still adapts, unfortunately. The test still adapts. It still considers your initial question and it still goes down. That's based on my experiments. I still have this question out to the GMAT, to Chris Hun, who, if I have questions about how the test is working, I get there. It's been about 4 days. I haven't gotten a response from him. But based on the experiments that we've done, and we do about 1,000 simulations internally, we've done about 1,000 simulations on the Focus Edition. Our inference from the data states that the test does adapt to this. If you do the first two questions, if you mark them incorrectly, and then you put them for review, and towards the end you you adjust them from incorrect to correct, the test initially will lower the difficulty level, and then it will bring it up if you answer the subsequent questions correctly. Again, however, I do not have a confirmed response from Chris Hahn, and in a couple of days I'll also have a confirmed response. But based on my simulations, that's how the test works. Okay. So Sanket has a really good question. It says for if to get to a score of 705 to 735, there are multiple combinations that are possible. You want to get to a score of 255 if you want to get to 256 actually if you want to get to a 705. That's what, if memory serves me right, 255 to 256. That's, it says if I get it in a Q90, DI85, and V80, would schools prefer this, or would schools prefer another combination? Let me just say this here. Honestly, schools don't care. Any combination is good. And this is even on the classical edition. INSEAD was the only school that really said that, hey, if you're applying to us, you need to have an 80th percentile at least in verbal. They didn't care as much about quant, but they basically said we need you to have an 80th percentile in verbal, and a lot of that was for European students because they want the instructions in English, the medium of instruction is English, and they wanted to make sure folks from Europe who they admit, or from and both Eastern and Western Europe, as well as from Africa who they admit, get to a certain bare minimum score. It was not for Indians, it was not for Americans, it was not for Australians, it was not for people from Singapore where English is really good anyway. Okay. So again, when you see a statistic, think about does it even apply to you based on your context here. So timing, lots of you were worried about timing. Let's talk about timing. And we're going to take verbal section. What's your kind of rule of thumb to really say, on average, I should be able to answer a verbal question in how many minutes? What's that rule of thumb that you worry about? 2 minutes, right? What do you do if you attempt a question and it takes you 2.5 minutes or even 3 minutes to answer? Again, we're not talking about the first question on an RC, but if it what's your reaction to it? What is your reaction to it? Take a question, takes you 3 minutes. I take 3 minutes to answer. What do you do? What's your next set of actions on that? Nothing. Try to solve rest of the questions. Try to accommodate, adjust. No, but that's during the test. But do you think it's bad that you took 3 minutes on that question when you're in the review mode? Do you try to solve that question quickly? Okay. So what I'm going to show, and Jayashree, I have your question. I'm going to respond to this. This is the score report for one of our students, Sanka, who got a 98th percentile. This is the timing chart, also the accuracy chart. Something that I want you to look at here. I'm going to draw two lines. This is your 2-minute mark over here. This is your 2-minute mark. And I want you to do the math here. I'm going to draw a horizontal line at 2.5 minutes. I'm also going to draw a horizontal line at 1.5 minutes here. How many questions do you think are outside of that 2.5 to 1.5 minutes? out of 23? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 on top, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, say 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 out of 23 questions are out of that 2.5 or 1.5 minute bound. What does that tell you? Does it make sense to try and answer every question in under 2 minutes or under 2.5 minutes? When you look at this here, let's look at another student. Same thing, 23 questions, draw horizontal lines. Again, another student, Samarth, who got a 98th percentile. How many questions are outside the bounds? First, second, third, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 questions out of 23 are outside the 1.5 to 2.5 minute bound. Do you think these guys worried about answering questions in under 2.5 minutes? And had these guys done that, they would have gotten such results? And this is, we're talking about verbal here, but you go to quant, you go to DI, you're going to get exact same stuff. Okay. There are certain questions that are extremely time consuming. There are others that are not time consuming at all. Okay. When you can really see in this case, this is probably the second or the third question in an RC, because this person really did a good job reading the RC. Spent about 4.5 minutes on the first question. The second and third were, second was a minute, the third was about 35 to 40 seconds. So again, you can pull that time in over here. And these are really simple CR questions, and the test will throw those at you. Okay, so accuracy first, timing next, absolutely critical. Just does solving questions quickly? No, the GMAT doesn't care about solving questions quickly. Absolutely not. You finish the test in a minute, and or in 10 minutes or 45 minutes. As long as your accuracy and your sequence is the same, you'll get the same score. Let's look at Jayashree's question that's been there for quite some time. I have a weird question about the GMAT. So I think I want to score 700 or 705, actually, is what it should be in the Focus Edition. I need to get 85th percentile in 3 sections. Actually, you need to get more than 85th percentile, 700. You probably need an average 92nd percentile. But what are the number of questions I can afford to get wrong and still maintain that score? Again, that will depend on how you get to that 705. There are about 100 ways to get to that 705. I'm going to demonstrate that. The number of questions depends on what kind of questions are you making mistakes on. As you really saw, we had a student, Antoine, got 99 percentile despite making 4 mistakes on verbal. You can't make mistakes on easy and medium questions. Hard questions, you can definitely make mistakes on. Sanket says, is it fine to attempt 18 to 19 questions with utmost attention and then guess 4 to 5 in the end to make sure we gave our best to get to a score of V80 to V82? Yeah, Sanket, that's a strategy that works beautifully if that's what your ability is. And then if you are, let's say, 5 days away from your exam, and that's one strategy that I might recommend because you don't have time to improve on your ability. But honestly, if you have more than 10 days before your exam, I'd fix, your attention issues and your timing issues. Okay. As an example of a student who got from, I think, a 435 to a 735 on the Focus Edition. And one thing which is really important for you to understand is that improvement on the Focus Edition or on the GMAT in general is possible. The amount of time that you need would depend on what your starting point is. For him, his verbal and DI were extremely weak. He started with a 14th percentile on the verbal section. Okay, as you can see over here, he couldn't finish those all the questions. This is essentially his timing chart in DI. Look at two things: one, the number of mistakes; two, the timing aspect. Both were bad. But again, given that number of mistakes, that's a way bigger issue than the timing things here. Okay. The key thing over here when you're starting from a low score is not to give up. If you're an e-GMAT, you see this. This is his screenshot from his from the CR course page. What you really see is, so on our platform, we evaluate and give you feedback every 30 minutes. And here in the strengthen application file 1, which is over here, he got a 75%, which again, it's a decent score. Got a grade B. He got a bunch of grades B and C over here. But again, he's someone who's very, very headstrong. And as he went back and revised, those grade Bs and Cs started turning into grade As. And this is something which is extremely valuable if you're trying to improve. Why? Because if you get that feedback to really say, this is what you're getting right now, and you go back and revise, you then control your own destiny. You then control your own scores because you're getting that feedback. Getting the same feedback through a mock test is actually a very difficult problem to correct, because then you have to diagnose where the problem is and then go on and correct. Here, he got feedback but 90 times just in the context of CR, and he acted upon it. Again, another example of his headstrong piece. This is our medium cementing quiz. So for e-GMAT, as you know, this after you finish the course, we have these predefined expert curated quizzes that you have to take. Now, you solve about 400 questions while doing the course, but then you do these other quizzes to evaluate what your ability is. He failed on the first 3 medium cementing quizzes, but then he did not give up. He learned from every quiz. You can really see the dates here. 2nd, 3rd September, he went back, revised certain files, came back, passed on those quizzes. That is being headstrong. That is a student who truly deserves that 735, that 100 percentile, or that improvement from a 12th percentile to that 100 percentile. Is it possible? Yes. Does it require effort? Absolutely. Here is another thing here. This is, I don't know, this is again a screenshot from the e-GMAT course. What you really see is in this is a block, which is our assumption, weaken, and wrong invitation. Your assumption, weaken, and strengthen kind of questions. We're looking at hard accuracy here. You can see how is accuracy improved from 52% to 71% to 86% in hard questions. And this is essentially in the last 14 attempts here, or 14 plus attempts, 7 to 14, and last 7. So the platform keeps track of that improvement. So when you make that, you don't not just track your aggregate improvement, which is this piece over here. What's important is this, while reducing his time to answer questions. So 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and then a minute 36. So not only did his accuracy go up, his time to answer questions, this went up over here, and this went down here. And why this data is powerful is because it allows you to make these decisions. Okay. Aggregate analytics are useful, but time segmented analytics are way more useful here. Okay. And as you go and look at some of the success stories, these are success stories just from the last 2 weeks that you see here on our YouTube platform. You're going to really see very, very similar improvements for each one of these. Okay. Sanket has a great question. What should my untimed accuracy be if I want to get to a score of V82 or higher? So I can tell you V82 because every number is going to be different. V82 gets to about 80th percentile. You're looking at 60% hard accuracy, but 85% medium accuracy. Okay. But really, really important. If your ability today is below 65th percentile, timing is not pulling your score down. That's really, really important. If you get to 80th percentile, again, you will not have generic timing issues. You'll have very, very specific timing issues and within the e-GMAT platform. Anyone knows a strategy to fix those specific timing issues? How do you identify which questions you have specific timing issues on? Do you guys know that? Okay, tell me when you say somewhat. Remember, I just told you there are questions where 3 minutes is the norm. There are others where 90 seconds is the norm. So how would you do that? The key to figuring out where you have specific timing issues is by looking at a question, not by taking mocks. That will tell you that you have a timing issue, but what's that specific timing issue? You have to look at a question. Let's say you took 2.5 minutes on it. So you took 2.5 minutes on it. Do you have a timing issue on this question? You took 2.5 minutes. The average population took 2.75 minutes. But do you have a timing issue? No. But if the average population took 2 minutes to solve this correctly, then do you have a timing issue? Absolutely. Right? You took 2.5 minutes, and on average, people take 2 minutes to solve this. So that's the judgment you need to make over 1,000 questions. Now, how challenging is it to make this judgment over 1,000 questions? How challenging is it? For on one question, fairly simple. On 1,000 questions, extremely challenging, right? EG matters. We go to your quizzes, we do that for you. We tell you on which questions you've taken longer than medium. So you exactly know which questions you have a timing issue on, and you can just focus your energy on that. Okay. That's how you fix your timing issue once you hit that 65th to 70th percentile ability, not before that. Okay. Let me be very, very clear. Not before that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes, no. Okay, that's where tech is a very handy tool. Okay. Cole says, how many days prior to our exam do you suggest you take up the course? If you're preparing, you should. I don't want you to prepare from any other source. Our course is way more comprehensive than, and I say way more, but 3 times to 4 times as much comprehensive as any other course or book out there. We've spent close to $1 million just on the Focus Edition. We're the only company in the world that offers computer adaptive mocks with the accuracy of within 20 points of your predicted score. Shweta is asking a question. Just to clarify, ability is the answer to medium hard questions, and accuracy is the number of correct questions. Yes, Shweta, that's correct. Accuracy is what I call as an absolute metric, which says if you say 8 out of 10 questions correctly, that's your accuracy is 80%. If those 8 out of 10 questions, if those 8 out of 10 questions are medium hard, or sorry, easy medium questions, then your ability estimate, reliable ability estimate from that is about 45th percentile. If on the other hand, those 8 out of 10 questions are hard or slightly extra hard questions, then your ability estimate from that is about 98th, 99th percentile. Okay. So with that, how do you build a personalized study plan? Okay. The key to it, and I'm going to first tell you the the fundamental key to it, and then I'm going to demo you as to how we do this on our platform. Okay, is using this metric called sum of scores, which we talked about this earlier, that a certain sum of scores on the Focus Edition leads to a certain end score. So 245, 246, 245 leads to 635, 246 leads to 645 here. And you can really download this table. If you Google GMAT Focus Editions, GMAT Focus Study Plan, you'll get to this. You can download this table for the Focus Edition for your reference. So you'd know exactly what sum of scores you need to get there. Now, how good is this heuristic? This is something that we created. The dots over here are actual scores. The dotted line is our heuristic. And the R square, when you do the regression with predicted versus actual, is about 0.9997. Okay. All right. So people who know regression, that's an excellent regression here. So let's see how we can build a personalized study plan. I'm going to take a score which is below 705 because that's where there's a lot more interesting juice. So let's take a 695. I want to take a starting score. Does anyone want to give a starting score? And along with their quant, verbal, and DI scores? 500 is not a score. I want the right score. You can say 505 and then give your quant, verbal, and DI scores, or 545. Also give the quant, verbal, and DI scores, please. Q81, V80, DI70. Okay, let's take that 595, 89, 83, 71. That's actually a simple one. Or I'll take that 575, Q76, V83, D76. Let's take that 575 over here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, let me just give me about 10 seconds. I just want to swap my screens and let's go into the screen share mode. Actually, I want to get the scores once again. It was 76, 83, 76. And that was a 595. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to get to this is the study plan that's already made. I'm going to edit that. So if you're an e-GMATer, you've seen this here. So I'm going to go and create a new plan. Create your study plan. Talk about 595. Set as target. Sorry, not target. I want to put the target as 695. 100-point improvement. Look at the current GMAT score, 595. Let's say an MBA.com mock test. So your verbal was, if I remember, 83. Quant was 76. And the DI accordingly should be between 78 and 82. I'm going to take 78. I think your quant was 77, if memory serves me right. So it gets your quant, verbal, and DI percentiles here. And based on it, understands what your strengths, what your weaknesses are. Based on this, it'll actually compute a path to your target score. It'll tell you what score should you aim for in quant, verbal, or DI. So it says, hey, let's improve your verbal to 85th, your quant to 87, and DI to 81. Now, I want to modify this because I don't want you to aim for such a high quant score. I would rather do, let's say, 88 in quant. I would do 83 in verbal. Sorry, 88 in verbal, 83 in quant, and I would say my DI, it says it should be between 83, 81, and 85. I'd do 83 here, and it will tell me it's a lot more challenging because at 99 percentile, it looks at that risk and it says, hey, that seems, it's very risky. Let's get to 87 here, and I'm going to that way improve that to 84, and then move forward. So you have all of that flexibility for you to do this here in this case, and move forward. So I'm going to take this in this case and move forward. Again, you can reduce our target verbal score. The key thing is it understands that when you get to those higher percentiles, life can become extremely challenging. So that's where it prevents you from doing that. So it tells you if you want to get to a 695, your verbal should improve to 87 from an 86 percentile. You should get to 99 percentile. Quant should go from a 46th to an 85th. DI should go from a 73rd to an 83rd. It'll give you some initial time estimates as well. And not surprisingly, Quant's where you need to spend the most amount of time on. Verbal about 31 hours and DI about 63 hours, given your current scores. And these are time estimates that are calculated based on e-GMATers who've done this in the past. So we take data both from the Focus Edition as well as the Classical Edition. So we have a statistically significant number of people in every segment within Quant, Verbal, and DI, and give you an initial estimate. Now, we will refine those estimates overall. So this person's verbal score is 86 percentile, so their CR and RC percentiles would be fairly good here. So let's assume you are slightly stronger in CR than in RC. So now we do this as we get more data, we'll refine your verbal milestones. And it says, hey, you need just about 2 weeks of effort in verbal, assuming you're going to spend about 20 hours a week. I'm going to accept that. Let's start with Quant. Okay, 46 percentiles approximately. That's where you would be. So about 44th percentile in Quant, 47th in verbal, in arithmetic, 47th in algebra. And you can change that. This is data that you get from your MBA.com mock. And again, 20 hours per week, you need about 5 weeks to do this. It'll even split time between between arithmetic and algebra. And then you do the same thing in DI. Since you're better in verbal, I bet these abilities are a lot higher over here than these ones, which are usually going to be a lot lower. Again, it refined its estimates because it can consume those subsectional abilities. It'll refine those estimates and say, this is what you need to get here at 4.2 weeks. So with this, as you put in more data, these estimates change. And you can see those times have changed. Quant has come down slightly. DI has gone up. But again, you have a reliable estimate to begin with. Verbal more or less has remained the same. There's also this chart's designed just for you. It says, hey, in verbal, you're going to start with stage 2 first. And then you're going to learn certain concepts, only the concepts that you need to know, but a lot of the time would be spent on test readiness. Because again, starting ability already super high in this case. Okay, you can see these things over here. But then it'll give you a sequence of execution. You can choose a different study sequence. You can say, I'm going to start with this. We usually recommend people to start with verbal, but since you're really strong in verbal, you want to hit the ground running, you can start with Quant. You have that flexibility. And you can put in your time here. You can say, maybe Mondays are not the best days. Tuesday, I can put in more time. Wednesday, I can put in more time. Thursday, I can put in more time. Friday usually is the time when you take a break. So overall, it tells you how much you can spend on a weekly basis. And then you enter a start date, and then it'll get you a tentative end date overall. Okay. All right. All right. You accept this, it'll give you your sequence of preparation, and then you move forward from that point on. Here, again, you can understand your sectional journey. You can say if you're starting in Quant, you're going to spend about 3.5 weeks in arithmetic, 1 week in algebra, again 102 hours, then about 2.1 weeks in verbal, in this case, about 4.4 weeks in DI. And you can really see the milestones here as you achieve this in this case. And you can look at your Quant and verbal journeys in this case, it'll tell you if you are using the e-GMAT course, what should you be doing here? When will you start one course and end it? In this case, and as you go from one course to the other, it has these time estimates here. You can understand that for verbal and DI. So you have this plan here, which is there for you always. You can now finalize, save it if you're happy with it, and then you can execute on this. And as you execute on this, you now have a calendar view. It will tell you exactly what you need to do. So your first course is Quant Basics that you need to do. And then from there on, you'll finish the number properties course. And then you'll do cementing and number properties. And then you can go to the next month here and move forward from this point on. So the nice thing is this is something that allows you to keep your entire plan in sync. If you can't study on a certain day, you can mark it as a no study day, and it'll adjust your plan automatically. So that way you're always current. In this case, you can see this is now a no study day. If you can put in more hours, so you can really change the number of hours here, and you can save and close, and you can see how that 1 hour will change to 5 or 6, whatever we put in here. So you can see those 6 hours over here. And it'll tell you if you're ending a certain task. It says, hey, you only need 4 hours, but we don't want to start a new task on the same day, but you have the flexibility. So and it'll tell you it'll give you a video as to how you can adjust this plan if you choose to start cementing on that day. Also, we're starting to use more and more of AI. You can ask your queries as to how, if you want to do one thing or the other. You can really just do this, and it should be able to give you an answer as to how to do this. It'll give you a help video and everything here. So does that give you an idea as to how should you go about creating that plan? Does it give you an idea? Already are done with. And each one of these guys created their plans and executed on them. And even though you may not execute on this plan and follow this plan to the letter T, it gives you a very solid direction. And even if you follow it to 80%, it solves a ton of your problems. The person who said, what should my plan be? And the person who said, I'm at a 595 with a V83 and so on and so forth. Does it give you a better idea overall? Can you also see how tech can help you make better decisions, guide you and channelize your energy? Yes, the session is recorded. Absolutely. Yes. Can you also see how tech can help you make better decisions throughout your preparation? Sangat says, yes, scoring above 85 is slightly challenging. So if you want to get to a 705 Q90, 705 is 255. So if you have if you have a 90 and an 85 in 90 in quant, 85 in DI, then all you need is an 80 in verbal. Now, is that the best way for you? Probably not. Depends on where you currently are, but that's one possible way. How many of you ask this question? Tell me, how am I doing today? If I'm going to succeed. How many of you ask this question? Or in other words, how do you evaluate the quality of your effort on a particular day? You spent 2 hours yesterday studying. How do you evaluate the quality of your effort? It's an important question, first of all. Is it an important question? You spent 2 hours yesterday or the 2 hours prior to that. How do you evaluate the quality of the effort that you put in? No one's typing? Okay, tasks completed. That's one metric, absolutely. If you decided to do something, and if you did that, taking some quiz, absolutely. Improvement in overall practice questions. But if you start practicing questions, checking your error log, okay, what is the one metric that tells you how well you've done? And let's say I'm going to try and be brave, and I'm going to try and enable my webcam so that you guys can see me. Let's see. The camera's not feeling particularly happy right now. So we're going to give it a minute to really figure that out. Okay. All right. So how many answered correctly with an average of 2 minutes per question? That's a very specific answer. It's a good answer. How many of you do this? Every day, every study session of a couple of hours, you do this and give yourself an A, B, or C grade. How many of you do this? Simple question again. How many of you do evaluate your study sessions every day? You do. And you take that quiz and note it down somewhere. And you have a stat of everything that you did. Very good. You are really, really good. If you're doing that, phenomenal. Okay. This is another thing that we built, which we do for our students. And that's absolutely critical that you do this because it ensures that your efforts are going in the right direction. So let me share my screen here. And this is essentially what you see is a critical reasoning course. You first learn the foundation, then you learn probably the most important skill that you need to learn in CR and RC, which is how do you draw inferences from a single statement and then from a passage. Then you learn assumption. Then when you have the Coach Connect live sessions, which are right there, then you learn evaluate, then you learn strengthen, weaken, and so on and so forth. Now, there are a few things that you would really see. Each of these activities, there's an evaluation here. There's a percentage score, and this is not about completion. This is about your score, because each of these learning activities has embedded quizzes in there. We built tech so that while you're watching video, we can quiz you, we can evaluate you, we can give you feedback based on what your scores are. But then these are still scores, and this is a lot of data that you're looking at. How do you evaluate this? And this is where we used AI, where what we did was the CR course had about 100 learning activities. We looked at each activity and we looked at your performance in each activity and we graded it, where we said, hey, you're at 100% here. The average e-GMAT has gotten an 80% here. You get a grade here. You got an 85% here, which actually the average e-GMAT has a 93% on this. And by the way, this learning activity has had about 25,000 attempts. This number is very reliable, which means even though you may be happy that you have an 85%, Statistically, you get a grade C. Okay. Similarly, over here, you got a 92%. You might be slightly sad, but statistically, you have a grade A over here. Now, what can you do with this data? The moment you get a grade C, you can go back, revise this. That's, you may not, that 77% may not look that bad, but when you see a grade C, what it's saying is that there are certain gaps in your understanding that the assessment's exposed. Go back, revise that. When you do that, in the following exercises, in the following learning activities, you can see your grades go up because there is an architectural symphony between one learning activity and the other. Okay. If you are focused, you will continue to get grades A. If you're not focused, if you're tired, between in that 30-minute slot, if you're watching a couple of YouTube videos, you'll see your grades plummet. And for this particular student, you can really see. So then we look at all these grades, and again, we use AI to give you a learning level grade in this. So for this entire CR course, you have a learning level grade, and this grade has a very high correlation with your ability estimates and what you're likely to achieve here. So in CR, you can see, he has a B minus, B minus, and towards the end, he got really good, got an A minus. In RC, let's look at his journey view. We call this the journey view. This person has predominantly an A. Again, LL0 is learning level 0, LL1 is learning level 1, and LL2 is learning level 2. Now, remember we talked about medium and hard accuracies? Let's look at those over here. Again, you have he's solved 263 questions post the 400 to 500 questions that he solved while learning, and overall his accuracies are this. Now if you want to figure out his medium accuracies, again these are aggregate, but last 20, again pretty good here. You can really do that contextualization is absolutely important. But if you want to do this for a hard, this is where this guy has done incredibly well. 85% hard accuracy is a 97th, 98th percentile, even a 99th percentile in RC. 55% hard accuracy gets you to a 70th%. You can really see that correlation between your score grades and what you end up achieving over here. And that feedback, if you act upon it, I showed in the case of Divi, that feedback is extremely powerful because it allows you, it gives you the power of course correction right then and there. So again, you can really see how we have grade activities, there's in-place evaluation, all of this is using AI, but AI is useful only if you have data. This underlying data that we had is what we fed to AI. And this allowed us to evaluate your progress and rate those activities right then and there. Most of the other courses, that data doesn't even exist. Whether you look at TTP or Magoosh, it's not there. Now, how did we go about doing this? I really said we kind of looked at the median scores, looked at the data that we were collecting. Then we actually fed this into an AI engine, which also had the cementing scores for about 20,000 students. And we got correlations. We iterated on this process a couple of times till we kind of settled into a set of correlations that we were happy with. And right now, if you have a grade A or A minus, your likelihood of achieving a 70th percentile ability or higher is 85%. If your likelihood of achieving an 85th percentile ability is 65%. So 65% of people who get a course level grade of A or A minus get to an 85th percentile ability. Okay. Get a grade B, you can still get there, but your likelihood goes down. Again, when you look at Divi, he got a grade B, but he was headstrong and he was able to achieve a 99 percentile despite getting a grade B. But if you get a grade C, that's a problem. Now, the nice thing is, even if you get a grade C in an activity, if you revise at a course level, you can still get a grade A. You have the power to do this. Not even a private tutor can give you such granular feedback. Okay. This is all the stuff that we did for GMAT Focus Edition. We revamped pretty much everything, starting from that study planner that you saw. Okay. And the reason why we delivered success consistently, this is our success since 2021. You can see the number of, and this is till about till 2023. So 2024 is not included, but you can see the comparative number of 700 plus scores reported on GMAT Club in this case. And the same thing with Quant, Q49 plus scores reported on GMAT Club. That percentage is a lot higher in this case. All right. Adarsh has a question, and then we'll solve a couple of one TPA, one DS question here. So Adarsh says I have a 300 on the mock. How much time will it take if I want full attention? If I pay full attention and learn to correct my mistakes. So Adarsh, depends on what you're aiming for. If you're aiming for a 645, you are looking at about 300 hours. If you're aiming for a 675, a 685, you are looking at about 400 hours to 450 hours or so. If you're looking at a 705, add another 20 to 40 hours from that point on. Your biggest challenge is going to be to stay committed for that long. In this case, that's kind of where it's really important to take strategic breaks. So after the first couple of 100 hours, you've got to really reach a point where you say, I'm now going to take a break, not study for a week and a half, then come back. Okay. And then repeat that process, because I can tell you very few people can go continuously for 400 to 500 hours. Does that make sense, Adarsh? Okay. So, questions. Are you guys ready to solve a few interesting questions? Just one person, two people. You can also not solve questions and really say, hey, you guys now know how to build your study plan. You guys now know what metrics to track. You guys now have a good understanding of the focus edition. Let's call it quits and end the session. Or we can solve questions. What do you want to do? Solve questions? All right. So, and get warmed up for the day. Okay. Let me bring in my notes. So what I'm going to do is, this is a TPA verbal question, more so CR. I have an argument here, and I'm going to move this poll here. I'm going to put in the poll, which is extremely specific for this particular question here. The questions in TPA verbal are very, very specific. So you have to identify, out of these 6 statements, one statement that is an assumption, and another statement that would support your identified assumption. So I'm going to give you the first poll, and you have to identify which of the following is an assumption here. I'm going to give you about 3.5 minutes to get to that first answer. So you guys are not rushed. And then I'm going to give you a second poll where you'll select which one of these 6 do you think is a strengthener. Okay. Good luck, guys. All right. Pretty much everyone has answered. Let's get those answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to end the poll and broadcast the results. This is how you guys polled. Choice 6, we no longer call them A, B, C, D, E. Choice 6 was the most popular. Choice 5 was next most popular, and so on and so forth. I'm going to put in the next question here, which is where you'd be choosing a strengthener. So again, the same answer choices. You have to choose a strengthener here. The argument remains the same. A strengthener that would strengthen that assumption. All right, last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll, broadcast the results. Now, this is the question. It's a hard question. First of all, let me just contextualize this question. Really important here, and this is the question which is you can really say in some ways it's essentially a CR question. In other ways, it's a CR question that's framed in a slightly different manner. I won't call it a very different manner, but a slightly different manner. And so if you understand each individual aspects of it, you understand, then you should be able to solve this question fairly easily. Now you get points on this only if you get both questions right. If you do not get both questions right, you get 0. Really important for you to understand. Satvik, you have a question, you have a doubt. I'd be happy to address that. You can put that in the short on support or in the Q&A pod here. Let's kind of look at what's going on over here. So this, you're given an argument and the conclusion is fairly simple. The author says, we believe that a strike is inevitable. So essentially what the author is saying is there's no way to prevent that strike. No matter what happens, that strike will happen. The plant's going to shut down. Okay. Everyone got that when they read the argument? The strike's going to happen regardless. There's no way, no force in the world that can prevent a strike. Did everyone get that? Right? All right. And I was able to turn my camera on. Let's hope it doesn't mess the system up, because this is a real-time communication system. Your poll responses, your chat responses are all real-time. Okay. All right, let me bring this over here so I look forward and I don't look like a moron looking on the side. So let's look at this here. Let me turn my camera slightly this way. Thank you. So let's look at the structure of the argument. What's going on? There's a bunch of demands. You have a pay increase. You have lunch break. They want the demand to rehire some people, and then you have the context with regards to Faxon's financial situation. They've had losses in the last 3 quarters or so, and based on that, the author makes this claim: "Hey, strike's going to happen. There's no way to avoid this strike from happening." Okay. Let me just make this poll bigger. So when you think about an assumption and when you're finding an assumption's primary job is to prevent the conclusion from falling apart or from failing. And in this case, the conclusion is saying the strike's going to happen. So when you pre-think assumptions, the way you figure out is you figure out scenarios in which my conclusion can falter or the conclusion cannot happen. We call this the falsification condition. And then your assumption simply is such a scenario is not possible. Okay. So so the question that we ask is, under what circumstances, given the information in the argument, will my conclusion break down? Okay, or in other words, what we translate this to is there a way to prevent the strike given the demands of workers and the fact that Faxam has had, so many losses? So there are two scenarios in which I can prevent the strike. One is if somehow Faxam, despite these losses, enough has money to pay to these people, that's when the strike could be averted. Or so the assumption really is that Faxam cannot get enough money to pay these folks. No matter what happens, they can't get enough money. And the other is that the workers will proceed with the strike if their demands are not met, and that's another assumption, because if despite facts of not meeting their demands, if workers decide to suspend the strike, then again my conclusion falters. Are the falsification scenarios clear? Yes. And then the corresponding assumptions that come out of those falsification scenarios. Again, fairly simple argument here. Okay. Now, once you have an assumption, you can also really say what would strengthen that assumption. If your assumption is that Faxam does not have enough money or cannot get enough money, then what would strengthen that assumption is no one's willing to give money to Faxam, or the fact that all of their cash reserves are depleted. That's something that would strengthen that assumption. Okay. What would strengthen the assumptions that workers would definitely go on a strike if their demands are not met? One thing that would strengthen that assumption is that the workers have a history of going on a strike in the past if their demands are not met, or if workers would still continue to get compensated if their demands are not met. Okay. There's a place in India called Kerala where lots of strikes happen. Do you know why that happens? Because people there still know a good percentage, they'll still continue to get a good percentage of their compensation, essentially, if even when they go on a strike. Yes, the Communist Party is in power, that's there, but then it's the reason why they are in power is because, and this is a place where 20 people can and out of 1,000 people can go on a strike, and that's absolutely acceptable over there. Then they are in power just because essentially you'd still get a ton of compensation even when you go on a strike, and accordingly you have unions as well. Okay, let's look at answer choices. Let me show what you guys polled. In this case, this was what's an assumption. You guys actually polled. This is how you guys polled here. Very few people chose choice 1. The most popular choice was choice 6, which is the correct answer. Why? Because essentially, if it doesn't, it's required that they don't have enough cash flow or cash reserves to support that, to meet the demands. Essentially, if they're somehow able to meet the demands, if they have enough money, then the strike can be averted. Now, a lot of you chose the reason for choice 5, which says that 12 laid off employees were not laid off for any performance related reasons. So why did you choose that? Why is that a must be true? Why do you think that was required? If they were laid off for performance related reasons, would Faxam not be able to hire them back? Even if their performance was lower than the performance of the average worker at Faxam, would Faxam? Maybe they protested the management about the rise of what? About the raise, that's probably what you wanted to say. But then, even if they did, if Faxam's meeting the financial demands, they shouldn't have any problems hiring them back. The workers wouldn't demand that they be hired back if their performance was bad. Why? In an organization, people who run an organization, the people who demand that they be hired back are the people whose performance is bad. If you're a top performer and your company lays you off, are you as worried? If you're a top performer and your company lays you off, are you as worried? No. Why not? Because if you're a top performer in company, yeah, you're going to be able to find a job elsewhere very easily. On the other hand, if you are a bottom performer, you're going to have a very hard time finding a job. Even for top performers, let me just tell you, fairly easy to find a job. Yes, the economy is bad. Okay. So if you're thinking in those directions, remember this. You're going beyond the scope of the argument. CR arguments are extremely tight. Their scope is extremely tight in this case. Choice 4 talks about the reason for a majority of losses. And it says, hey, they need to be because of a decline in profit margins. Why is that there? The losses could be because of a lawsuit. The losses could be there because of loss of market share. The losses could be there because of a few other reasons. That because they actually had to pay back a loan that would have led to losses. Okay. The only other interesting answer choice, honestly, for me is choice 2, which is when a union leader calls for a strike, workers go on a strike. Now, if the argument told me that leaders had called for a strike, they are the ones who are driving the strike, that would be a very interesting answer choice. But because the argument doesn't say that, is not relevant to our discussion. Okay. Willingness. How many found this tempting? Maxim's is unwilling to negotiate with workers. How many of you found this tempting? Did anyone find this? MBTs must be true. You have. Okay. Willingness is essentially on the GMAT is a trap. Preference, willingness are a trap. Let me ask you this question. How many of you, if the GMAT were not a component of your MBA application, how many of you would be here in this webinar learning how to plan for the GMAT or learning TPA on your Saturday? Whether it's Saturday morning, Friday evening, whatever it is for you. How many of you would have done this willingly on a Saturday? How many of you would do this willingly if the GMAT were not a required component? Do you think your companies give you raises willingly, or they give you raises because they don't want to lose you? Right? No, I won't be teaching. Let me just say this, willingness to do something and whether we do something or not, they're two very different things. Don't equate one to the other. Okay. So we do a ton of things that we are not willing to do because we see the benefit of doing them and the eventual end goal. That's what drives us as humanity. The first humans, when they left Africa, they didn't willingly leave Africa and go from there to Europe and to parts of Asia. It was the drought that drove them. And it's because we are trying to do things that are painful for us. It's because we've done those things. That's what actually pushes all humanity forward. This is essentially what it's saying is that it describes the cause of profits. We talked about this earlier. I think we really look at this. This one is our correct assumption, choice 6 or answer choice F. Why? Because essentially what it says is even if they wanted to do this, they cannot pay for this, which means the strike is going to happen. Okay. Now, if this is my assumption that they don't have enough cash, what would strengthen this assumption? What would ensure that they don't have enough cash? If their operations aren't generating cash, which is where this choice would become a good strengthener. How many of you got both of these correct? Good. You got both of these correct. Get yours, and for the right reasons, give yourself a pat on the back. If you got them wrong, understand why you got them wrong. How should you modulate your thought process? And again, remember this. This is not a verbal session. This is a strategy session. If you were to come to a verbal session, I'd start from the very scratch and teach you the fundamentals and then go from there. Okay. So this is, even if you didn't get a whole lot of it, that's absolutely okay. If you go to the free trial where we start from the very basics, you will get stuff that I'm talking about. Okay, you guys want to do a data sufficiency question? Data sufficiency verbal question? Yes, no? Okay, just the last question. Gonna take about another 5 to 6 minutes at all. Okay, DS verbal, let me get in the poll question here. And then after that, if you have any questions that are still left, I'll be happy to answer those questions. So what I want to do is, because I don't want to time you guys, I have this thing called still solving. If you want to just select, if but 10 of you want to select still solving, that'd be really great. I have only one person who selected still solving. 10 people should select still solving, so that I can show the poll then. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Here is the question. And again, here instead of tick, you have dashes. So when it says tick, this is an official question. That's how it was there. Consider the dash to be a tick. Okay. With that, I'm going to mute myself, pause my. But 70% of the class is done. Let's get those answers in right now. I'll give you another 15 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Get those answers in. I still have 5 people who are in that still solving bucket. Come on. I want to see those answers. Again, no one's passing judgment on you. All right, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to broadcast the results. So, first of all, I mean, you can see you have a split jury. B, C, and D are all very popular. E is somewhat popular, but B, C, D, and D are all very popular. And you can see 4 people did not respond, but 86% of you got this. But first of all, did this question feel very different from your traditional data sufficiency questions? There wasn't a whole lot of computation required in this. Overall, it was logic. This is what we call as the verbal-based DS questions that are there, and they account for between 40 to 50% of all DS questions that you're likely to see on the test. If you've taken official mock, they do not, those official mocks do not contain such questions. Okay, so with that, let's kind of analyze what's going on. I'm going to just highlight here. Yeah, so we have 4 book lovers who recently met, and they're not sure the topics that interest the other. So you have 4 people, and they're not aware of what the other 3 are interested in, and the table indicates that the topics of interest. Now, one of the things when it comes to data insights is you'll have a data set, and you always have to own the data set. You've got to understand what that data set is. So let's look at how this data set is organized here. So you have topics on this case. You have topics here where you have history, you have language, so you have topics over here, and then you have interests here. So for example, Alex is interested in philosophy and science fiction. Baika is interested in humor and philosophy, and so on and so forth here. And so that's really important. Now, with that, let's kind of look at the conditions in this case. It says one of these persons will gift another of these persons 2 books, each one on different one of the listed topics. So there'll be 2 books, and there'll be 2 different topics. You could have history and language, humor and philosophy, history and humor. You won't have both of them in history, both of them in philosophy, or so on and so forth. And the question is asking, it's just a yes/no question. At least one of those 2 books fall under the recipient's broad topic of interest. So if 1 falls under, we are good. If 2 falls under, we are good. If the answer is yes. If none of them fall under the broad topic of interest, then the answer is no. So it's a yes or a no question. Okay. How many of you were able to decipher this even before reading either of the statements? How many of you were able to do this? But if answer this yes/no question, if at least 1 falls under the bucket of interest, then I'm good. How many of you were able to do that? Yes, no. I'm not seeing a whole lot of people typing. Okay, with that, let's look at the first statement here. The first statement says one topic is science fiction and the other is humor. So what's interesting about science fiction? Pretty much everyone, barring Baika, likes science fiction. How many of you were able to draw that inference? Alex likes science fiction, Carlos likes science fiction, and Deepa likes science fiction. And Baika, who doesn't like science fiction, likes humor. So if one is humor, the other one's science fiction, then for everyone, there'll be at least 1 topic of their interest. So choice B by itself, so statement 2 by itself, seems to be sufficient. So we now have either choice B or choice D as that over here. Okay. Let's look at statement 2. Statement 2 says the intended recipient is Carlos. Now, what's special about Carlos? It seems to like everything but humor. And if there are 2 books and each one of them is going to be of a different topic, then even if one of them is humor, the other one would be of his interest. So statement 2 by itself is also sufficient. So given that statement 1 and 2 are both sufficient, choice D is your correct answer. Now, tell me, guys, for those of you who answered this incorrectly, why did you answer this incorrectly? What aspect of this question? I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of computation required. It was just about owning that data set, understanding that data set. And when you read that statement, going back and then drawing inferences from it, that was required. So why did you guys make a mistake? Because, about 60% of you did make a mistake when I look at the poll here. Why did you guys, those of you who made a mistake, why did you make a mistake? And here are your answer choices. Here is how you guys polled. So actually 70% of you made a mistake. Lack of prep in DS. Okay. Be more specific over here. Misinferred. Okay. Got it confused between X and dash. I told you dash means tick. Okay. Again, really, really important for you to know where you currently are and how you're going to go from one your starting ability to your target ability. You've got to do that for every subsection: CR, RC, arithmetic, data sufficiency, TPA, uh, graphic interpretation and table analysis, multi-source reasoning. You've got to do this from for each one of these, where you have to start from to really figure out where your starting ability is. Accordingly, either you start in stage 1 or stage 2, and then if you know exactly what your target ability is, if you do your PSP, which is what you would know exactly what metrics to aim for, and you would be able to build a plan towards it. Okay. If you're an EGMATer, do not refer to anything else. You've got way more content than anything. Okay. With that, again, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. It was fun having you guys. You guys are a smart group. You answered many of my questions correctly. You focused on the right things. And with that, as we always say, happy learning. Okay. I'm going to share the PDF of this. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions here. And if you can, write down your biggest takeaways from this. What actions would you take right after this? That'd be wonderful. What are some of your biggest takeaways from this? And I'm going to also share the link to our YouTube channel and my LinkedIn. Let me just make sure I organize this well. So, and I have a bunch of questions that I can respond to right now over here. Okay. Anusha says, currently attempting cementing in Quant WB, haven't been able to pass. Medium cementing, so you got greater than 70, so you've been able to pass. I'm going back and learning from my mistakes. What should be the next steps? Anusha, two things. One, build your error log. Two, do cementing in relaxed mode. Make sure you get the accuracy first. You increase that medium from 70 to 90. 70 is a really good starting point. The third thing that I can really say is go back, look at your journey grades, look at all the files where you got a C grade, revise those files, then do that. You're going to see improvement right away. How can you calculate your starting score as a complete beginner? You can take a Sigma X mock. Let me just go there. So you can take an e-GMAT mock test. We offer a free mock. You'll see a lot of analysis over there. And if you need help with study plan, you can write to us. You can reach me at rajat@e-gmat.com. Okay. I didn't understand the second statement. Ayushman says, if you only know about Carlos, how will we solve that? Everyone, not everyone, that person. The question was, will the recipient get one book of their interest? Not will everyone, because one of these people is going to give another of these people two books. Each one of them was going to be from a different topic. Okay. Does that help, Anshuman? Okay. All right, perfect. It seems it helps. Okay, guys, with that, take a look at our free trial. If you have any questions, write to me. My email address is here, rajat@e-gmat.com. you can't download the file, if you're probably on a cell phone, that may be an issue. We're going to share the recording. It'll also come in your platform. So when you log into your platform in about 4 to 5 hours, you should be able to see a message saying, here's the recording, here's the session PDF. And you should be able to download it from there as well. You'll also get it in email. Okay. With that, check the free trial out. And if you need help with your study plan, write to us. Thank you and have a wonderful day.